Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today we're talking web design, specifically CSS, that magical language that brings style and life to the internet. We're diving deep into the do's and don'ts, the things that separate a good website from a truly website. Whether you're a seasoned developer or just starting out, these tips are going to up your CSS game and have you building websites that are not just functional but beautiful and user-friendly. Let's get started. First up, let's talk about Flexbox. Now, if you've been doing web design for a while, you might remember the days of floats and positioning elements. A bit of a headache, right? Flexbox comes in to change the game entirely. It's like having this intuitive, almost magical tool that makes creating complex layouts feel like a breeze. Imagine you're arranging items on a shelf. You can easily move them around, align them perfectly, and even adjust the spacing between them. That's the kind of control Flexbox gives you with your web elements. The beauty of Flexbox is that it's incredibly versatile. Need to center an element vertically. Flexbox does it with a single line of code. Want to create a responsive navigation bar that adapts perfectly to different screen sizes? Flexbox has got you covered. And the best part is that it's not even that hard to learn. Once you grasp the basic concepts of flex containers and flex items, you'll be amazed at how much easier it is to create dynamic and responsive layouts. Trust me, once you go Flexbox, you'll never want to go back to the old ways. Now let's talk about a CSS feature that can be tempting to overuse, the important declaration. Think of it like that extra shot of espresso, useful in small doses but overdo it, and you're in for a world of jitters and headaches. The problem with important is that it overrides all other styles, making it difficult to debug and maintain your CSS code in the long run. Imagine you're trying to troubleshoot why a particular element isn't displaying correctly, and you keep finding important declarations scattered throughout your style sheet. It's like trying to find a needle in a haystack. Instead of relying on important, strive to write clean and well-structured CSS. Use more specific selectors, leverage cascading styles, and create a logical hierarchy within your style sheets. This approach might take a bit more time up front, but trust me, your future self will thank you when you don't have to spend hours untangling a web of important declarations. Remember, in the world of CSS, less is often more. Speaking of clean code, let's talk about the importance of keeping your CSS organized. Imagine walking into a library where all the books are just piled up randomly. Not exactly the most efficient way to find what you're looking for, right? That's what it's like trying to navigate through a messy CSS file. It's overwhelming, time-consuming, and let's be honest, a little bit frustrating. But here's the good news. Organizing your CSS doesn't have to be a chore. Start by using comments to explain your code. Think of it like leaving little notes for yourself or your team, making it clear what each section of CSS is responsible for. Next, adopt a consistent naming convention for your classes and IDs. Whether you prefer camel case, snake case, or something else entirely, stick to it throughout your project. This consistency makes your code more readable and easier to understand. Finally, consider breaking down your CSS into smaller, more manageable files. This modular approach not only keeps things organized, but also makes it easier to reuse styles across different pages or even different projects. Now let's talk about a CSS practice that you'll want to avoid, like the plague inline styles. You know, those pesky style attributes that you sometimes see embedded directly within HTML tags. They might seem convenient at first, but trust me, they're a recipe for chaos in the long run. Inline styles break the separation of concerns, which is a fundamental principle of web development. This principle encourages us to keep our HTML, structure, CSS, style, and JavaScript behavior separate and distinct. When you mix your CSS into your HTML with inline styles, you end up with a tangled mess of code that's difficult to read, maintain, and debug. Imagine trying to change the font size of all your headings, but instead of simply updating one rule in your external style sheet, you have to hunt down each individual heading tag and modify its inline style attribute. It's a nightmare. Finally, let's talk about a CSS feature that has the potential to revolutionize the way you approach web design's CSS grid. If Flexbox is like having a magic wand for one-dimensional layouts, then CSS Grid is like having an entire toolbox filled with powerful layout tools for two-dimensional designs. With CSS Grid, you can divide your web page into rows and columns, creating complex and responsive layouts with ease. It's like having the power of a professional design tool right at your fingertips, but without the steep learning curve. One of the most compelling features of CSS Grid is its ability to create visual order even when the underlying HTML structure might be a bit unconventional. No more relying on complicated floats or positioning hacks to achieve the layout you desire. CSS Grid gives you the freedom to structure your content in a way that makes sense semantically, while still maintaining complete control over the visual presentation. So there you have it, 5 essential do's and don'ts to elevate your CSS game. Remember, mastering CSS is a journey, not a destination. Embrace these tips, experiment with different techniques, and don't be afraid to push the boundaries of what's possible in web design. If you found this video helpful, give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the channel for more web design tips and tricks. And while you're at it, let me know in the comments below what CSS topics you'd like me to cover in future videos. Until next time, keep creating awesome websites.